Losego Silodwego, Hannah Claus Janjak. Greetings to you all. My name is Hannah Claus. I'm an assistant professor in studio arts at Concordia University and visual artist of Onkwehonwené and English ancestry. I'm a member of Gapege, Tyendinaga Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, though I grew up far away from community on the East Coast in Wolastoqiyik territory. I've been living in Tiohtià for over 20 years now and consider myself privileged to make my home in Onkwehonwené territory, where I've been able to learn and grow with Onkwehonwené communities. Today, this talk is brought to you as part of the Onkwehonwené Research Chair activities. I was awarded this chair last June as a 5-year position to bring Onkwehonwené voices and ways of being into the university to show how we coexist and create on this land. I'm also going to say it was chosen specifically the title. I had to come up with the title, Onkwehonwené, and to not translate it into Indigenous methodologies, just to be able to make people learn how to say Onkwehonwené in the university. It's been working pretty well so far. I'm very pleased to present our panelists today who are part of this inaugural event: Nicolas Renaud, Dominic Lafontaine, and Lori Beavis, Director of Daphne Art Center. I want to mention that this talk is presented also in collaboration with Daphne, and Lori is the Executive Director of Tiohtià's first Indigenous Artist-run center. She's also an independent curator, art educator, and art historian living and working in Tiohtià in Montreal, identifying as Michi-Sagig, Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Irish Welsh settler. Beavis is a citizen of Hiawatha First Nation at Rice Lake, Ontario. Her curatorial work, art practice, and research articulates narrative and memory in the context of family and cultural history, and reflects on cultural identity, art education, and self-representation. Yeah, for being here, Lori. The artists were chosen mainly because they both have an exhibition. Well, they're showing at Daphne this fall, coming up this fall, and their exhibitions both relate to WAMPUM. Some of you may know, I'm also extremely interested in WAMPUM as an artist, and so I thought this was a great opportunity to have a larger discussion on this, on the importance of WAMPUM in contemporary art. I think we're going to start with each artist will give a short presentation of their work, and then there will be some questions that I've prepared for the artist and Lori, and then open questions from everyone after that. Dominic Lafontaine is an Algonquin multimedia artist, poet, and musician. His audacious, humorous, and often absurd artworks explore the very notions of cultural identity, meaning, and belonging. A graduate of visual arts at Ottawa University, he synthesizes his knowledge of traditional art forms with new media in order to redefine the visual language of contemporary Indigenous art. His motto: research, remix, and repeat. So, Dom, I leave it to you for your presentation.
Yeah, good. Thanks for that. Yeah, so I forgot that you say my bio, so I might skip a few things in my presentation.
First, Nicolas Renaud is a filmmaker, installation artist, and assistant professor in First People Studies at Concordia University in Montreal. He has been making work in various mediums for the past 25 years. The film Brave New River, La Nouvelle Rivière, earned him the award for the best first Canadian feature-length documentary at the 2013 Hot Docs Festival in Toronto. Nicolas Renaud is of mixed Indigenous and Quebecois heritage, is a member of the Wendat First Nation of Wendake. His current projects include a series of video installations with wampum belts. Merci, Nicolas.
Merci, Tiohtià, Askanonia. All right, that works for everyone? Okay. So I'll try to just summarize my general interest in WAMPUM first, and it's only recently that I'll go in English because we started like that. It's only recently that I got interested in making them. I had a more removed theoretical interest, historical interest before. For me, when that WAMPUM speak about the tradition and speak about the ancestors' way of thinking, but they also speak about rupture. They also speak about challenges of cultural erosion and reconnection for the Wendat people. So we see here a famous chief, Onkwehonwené, holding a WAMPUM belt. Here it's an early painting by Zachary Vincent, who was a Wendat in the 19th century, who took on painting in the European way, and there's always cultural signifiers, objects in his pictures. So he made a few self-portraits. That's an early self-portrait. The detail I'm going to mention was pointed to me by Manon Siwi, my dad's cousin, an artist in Wendake, that in the early painting, the WAMPUM belts are correct. So we can see across his chest, the beads are laid out properly. In the self-portraits later in his life, the beads are incorrect. They are laid out the wrong way, and you know it's like a subtle visual trick, and it would be pretty hard to weave a belt like that with the thread going horizontally instead of making rows and columns the usual way. So we see that the beads are slanted like that. They're not standing like that. So we've been reflecting on that. And I agree with Manon that at that time, the Wendat are kind of losing parts of the culture and maybe losing the knowledge of the WAMPUM. I mean, there are some beautiful WAMPUM in the nation and in some museums all over that we're not even really sure what they meant and what they were for. And it's as if Zachary Vincent is telling us, look, we're losing the way of the WAMPUM. We're losing the thinking and the meaning of the WAMPUM. So I find it wonderful because it's such a subtle message, but to me it's right in line with one of my interests in WAMPUM, is that they don't only speak in their context. They don't only speak for the intended message. I think that WAMPUM was so integrated in all aspects of culture. I'm really interested in how WAMPUM reflects the unity of the thinking, of relationship with the world, with the earth, with others, with individuals in the collective, between nations, all of that. And that there's a certain metaphysics, I call it metaphysics of WAMPUM, to not say spiritual, because it's not just the spiritual meaning, it's this idea that material does hold thought and speech, and that's encoded from far before, you know, like for the Haudenosaunee in the Peacemaker story, how shell can heal by carrying the healing words. And I'm interested in framing WAMPUM history not just within a few hundred years of diplomatic WAMPUM or exchanges with Europeans, but within 5,000 years of shell symbolism in North America, with deep spiritual value, transforming shells, and archaeologists have found, things that go back to 5,000 years in the Mississippi Valley. It's for a long time, it's held a deep meaning about connecting the mind, the soul, the material, life and death, water and earth, and all of that. So to me, that does mean that there is a real belief in the fact that the wampum belt carries those thoughts and ideas and can speak through time and space. And like in everything else the ancestors were doing, they were thinking about the ancestors and they were thinking about future generations, and how we encounter some wampum belts today and start reading them again and start being moved or inspired by them. I think that this was part of the thinking of the wampum, that it will speak through time and space. And so I go back to this subtle message by Vincent, which, you know, I haven't heard about that before, people discussing his inversion of the wampum beads in the painting. And it's today in the 21st century that Manon Siwi looks at that and thinks about it and talks to me about it, and we start discussing it. So it's just like a wampum in his painting. He has faith that is going to speak to his people across time and space. Just in relation to some of my past work, to me, wampum is not, it's a new thing, but it's not completely foreign to my interest. I was always interested in the relationship between speech and material, between thought and flesh. So this was an early performance video installation in 2002, in which I filled my mouth with ice until all my muscles were completely frozen and I couldn't close the lips, and I tried to speak until the ice melts and the sensations come back. This was a short video called Récitation. I asked the boy about the age of the narrator in one of Proust's novel of À la recherche du temps perdu. I asked him to learn one sentence that was half a page with a lot of punctuation. And he struggles a lot, but how his memory works to bring back the words and connect them to ideas he may have had about what the story was saying was very interesting for me. Wampum is called in some languages, and I know the Wendat sometimes refer to it that way, as river of words. There's rivers and waters in all my work. That's in a short documentary called Bear Cubs. So the Saint Charles River behind the tree that goes through Wendake. And that's a very dear tree to me, where I played all the time when I was a kid. It has all these roots that are exposed and wrap around the rocks and everything on the banks of the river. So this mix of light, roots, and water to open the film was just symbolic of my attempt to reconnect to things and be located somewhere. In that same documentary, an important elder in my family, the father of Manon Siwi, Roland Siwi, has been making traditional objects all his life. And through a time where exactly a lot was lost, or sometimes things were made just for tourists in gift shops, Roland did all kinds of things, but he was also interested in really understanding the traditional objects and reconnecting with that. So that inspires me too, to learn wampum making. Here we see a Wendat war club that is made, a pipe that is made. So then I started being interested in working with video installation, which is one of my mediums, along with film and object. And how could I make it interact with light? How could I work with wampum and interact with light? I started with all kinds of things, projecting whatever. This is a entirely white wampum made with mother of pearl beads made by Manon. She lent it to me so I could have a screen and just test things. Here I projected close-up shots of a brook trout. So two things from water, two things that matter to me, playing with different colors and see what could come out of that. Nothing came out of that. This is just part of things I was trying. It is by studying and encountering more the Wendat Christian belt that I started to have inspiration for some directions in my work. So especially this one, that's a wampum that was given to the Jesuit to be gifted to the Chartres Cathedral in France, because the Jesuits were at the Lorette mission near Quebec City, where there were mostly Wendat, also some Algonquin, maybe, and other people. They were attached to Chartres. They insisted a lot on the Virgin as a theme of conversion, which created a connection because with the importance of women, matrilineal clans in Wendat society, the first human being the Sky Woman. The missionary figured out quickly that stories of the pregnant woman who started their world as they know it was connecting more maybe than stories of Jesus. So a lot of the prayers and exchanges at the time are about the Virgin. So they made them write prayers in Latin on belts. Of course, the Wendat didn't speak Latin, didn't write either, but they knew the message. The prayer says, so Virginie paritura votum uronum. So the Huron pray for the Virgin who shall give birth. So for them, I mean, these were visual designs first that they had to figure out in beads. It's quahog, it's traditional material, so purple quahog and white whelk. You know, sometimes the white is also quahog in wampum belts, but originally it was mostly whelk, often lightning whelk, which was quite big and white, and they got that from the Atlantic coast through trade. It is a beautiful belt that has a rare thing, which is a braided frame of porcupine quills that were dyed red. Something we notice also, they are glass beads, oval black and white glass beads that are inserted. I may speak more about that later, but one thing I'm quite interested in with this belt is this insertion of a foreign material in a European material within the belt. So can see more of the glass beads. So something that caught my attention is that the glass beads are present in every word in the prayer, except the word Huron. You know, so I quite share the interpretation, and not many people have talked about it that way, but I quite share the interpretation of a French anthropologist, Lise Pouillot, who thinks that there's a deliberate inscription of an identity and territorial meaning in using those beads, and I'm inclined towards that. One of the reasons being exactly that the word Huron is the only one without any foreign material, that is only shell beads. I obtained macro shots from archaeologists who worked on the belt at Chartres in 2017. I could see that there was no discontinuity in the tying of the weaving of the material. So all the beads were part of a kind of a same making process. Close up of the porcupine quill. So I was shocked by that belt at first, because I had little knowledge of all the Christianized Latin wampum. I just knew they existed, and to see a Wendat wampum to be turned into a Catholic object was sad and shocking and upsetting for me at first, until I started looking at the object all the time and talking about it and reading about it and all of that. And I started to see how it is actually, at that moment, the survival of Wendat identity and Wendat thinking and spirituality and politics. This is supported by a letter that was written, transcribed in Wendat and translated to French after accompanying the belt to Chartres, in which they talk about clans. So they call Mary a clan mother, and they say they would accept that the Catholic French and the Wendat convert could make a new clan with Mary as a clan mother, and that the belt is for Mary, who has given birth, is giving birth, and will keep giving birth. So I found again this kind of circular notion of time of the ancestral Wendat thinking in the way they saw it. Then to look at the material, the fact that also the beads represents the individual in the community, and like many belts, the belt represents the collective being united. And literally, while other belts were made by one person, even though there's a collective mind at work in the design and the message, literally this one was made by everyone, because the missionary writings point to the fact that each household was kind of commissioned for carving and drilling a bead a week or something like that. And when we look at this belt, it's actually less even than others, you know, and some at first sight say, oh, it's less good craft because the beads are not all as equal, as even as others, but it's actually a good representation of the unique individuals coming together as a collective, and the fact that the beads were not all made by one person. They were made by everyone, and the weaving was done by the women. So it's the women in conversation with the Virgin Mary, and through the Virgin Mary, kind of in conversation with Sky Women, in a way. So all of that made me see it as a way to kind of re-articulate Wendat thinking and beliefs rather than losing it. And the medium of the WAMPUM itself, to create an alliance, both religious and political, is a purely Wendat way of doing things. So in that sense, like the medium is the message. The medium of the WAMPUM is more important than the message that it says. So at first, I was not even thinking of making WAMPUM because I'd never made any, but I started to think I have to work with the material because I understand more and more how the material carries meaning, not just the motifs, the pictograms, the material itself, like is charged with meaning. The porcupine quill, the purple beads, the white beads, the glass beads, all of that. So it started to be a fun project that connected me better with the community too. So Manon could help me understand the basics of the techniques. I'm not too good with wood, so my dad had a fun project making the loom for me. So he made this loom, and I started working. I used moose hide. Because that's a material that I'm close to. I ate a lot of moose. It's on Wendat territory, so the horizontal strips are moose hide. So then my idea was like, how can I play with video, and how can I echo these ideas of material in the old belt? So my current projects are a series of WAMPUM that I'm making that are meant to interact with video projections. I'm making some also that do not interact with video projections. I'm making one that's going to be hung in a window in a building in Quebec City, but they all integrate crystal beads and glass beads. So the light goes on them, but also goes through them and lands images and shadows on walls behind. So for this first prototype I made last year, and I was exhibited in Quebec City, I made the little cross that are often present in a Christianized belt. And I chose to use cube trochus beads because I could not find enough. I couldn't find whelk beads at all for the white one. I couldn't find enough quahog white beads. So I started looking for other material that would still be shells, that would still be coming from water. And trochus coming from other countries, sold in like jewelry supply places, has different faces. Some are shiny, some are semi-translucid, and sometimes, depending how the shell was cut, there's a matte white one. And they were sold in cube shape. So I thought this will make a better surface for projection. For the video projection to be clear, because the rippled surface of only cylinder beads made the video a little blurry. So I started working with trochus white shells mixed with crystal beads. Between two crosses, to me, that symbolized the connection between Wendat and Chartres at the time. I wanted things to converge to an important ancient symbol of old belts, which is this diamond shape, which can often be referred to as the console fire. So where people come together and minds come into one through speech, you know, through the console meeting. So it was hung in the gallery. And then I scrolled the old Christian wampum belt, a high resolution image of it. I make a video where it loops scrolling across my belt. When it goes through the crystal beads, it sends all these little stars and rainbows and prism on the wall behind. From behind, it makes the color come out. I went with green for this fire console fire because it reminded me of the land, the territory, as much the old territory of Georgian Bay and the very green shores in some areas of Georgian Bay, and the general territory of the forest around Quebec City. The trochus beads soak some of the light at the same time that they reflect it, and they let some light through as well. So I really liked all these qualities of the material, that they at once reflect, absorb, and let through the light. So then the piece always had three planes, the same way that when the projection is on it, you have again three planes. You have the image being projected on the belt, you have the belt itself with my own design, and you have the shadows and the light behind on the wall. So it is always an interaction between three planes of light. I wrote with cylinder beads Atlantic, which is the Wendat name of Sky Women, on the wall behind, so it receives some of the reflection through the glass beads. So to me, that was a way to invert the prayer on the belt, which is, I think, the true meaning of the belt anyway, that it's praying as much to Atlantic than the Virgin. So these are other images. And I detached the porcupine quill braid and made it scroll in the other direction above. So they both move both ways like that. So now what I'm working with, I'm trying to come up with a new design of the next two I'm going to make, one for Daphne. And I'm interested in making light boxes as well. They will be in dialogue with the belt and the projection. So I'm interested in the fact that Chartres itself was built in connection to a female pre-Christian deity, and that the Catholic priest knew that and then erected it in the name of the Virgin, but it was also connecting to other religion with the women at the center. So the light blue there is the famous Chartres blue, which barely survived because that's from the 12th century and the cathedral burnt. And then the way the blue is made in stained glass later made it darker. It's not the same material, but the famous lighter Chartres blue is the lighter one we see. So for my light boxes, I'm using this color. I had an artist help me in Photoshop, and we're extracting bits of belts and seeing how we can try to create things where we reflect on some of the designs and the material. That's actually an extraction of the pattern of the glass beads inserted in the Wendat belt from the 1670s. I should have mentioned that that belt I'm working on is from 1678. With this whole idea of light and connecting to stained glass, I want to see how light boxes will keep, engaging our mind and our perception that way. So finally, I could just show some of the materials. So that's the moose hide. I get it in Wendat. It's kind of, moose is wild. It's hard to get in any shop, but there's a shop in Wendat that has some. In the new design I'm going to make, I'm integrating quahog beads. So they were hard to find. I finally found some. I cannot make beads myself out of shells. So I will integrate purple beads. I have some new color for the console fire, which is hyacinth red. And I'll try to work with that. I'm also learning about crystal, how much better it works with light than glass. And I didn't know anything about these things, like Swarovski crystal is really much better than all the others. I compared many samples of different ones. And last thing, some of the designs I'm working with to integrate the quahog beads. There's this one that I like. It's on the belt by that Onkwehonwené is holding, the first picture I showed. I like this because it can be an axe, a tomahawk for war, but like that. But it could also be a peace pipe like that. And it's a simple design where you just offset a few rows. I like that. And always, you have to work on paper first to make sure you get things right. And to me, this is a good representation with my idea of decolonization, that in the time we live in right now, we need both the axe and the pipe. We need to be angry and fight, and we need to be able to talk as well. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Caroline.
Thank you very much.
Dominic, do you have your presentation worked out?
I should be good. And I'm going to switch to English just to see if it was just because I was doing it in French.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dominic Lafontaine. After all this technical stuff, I am actually a consultant in digital arts and an artist. Okay, let's keep it going here. I have all the usual stuff. I've also had the chance to work with the ONF, the National Film Office, with the program Déranger 2. I also had the chance to go to Israel with the delegation. It was really great. And more recently, I had a chance to work with Materia, with a group from Concordia University and LUCAT over up here, because I'm based out here in Témiscamingue. I've also been a jurist on a few things. Recently, the New Adventures of Sound Art, and I had a chance to be a jurist also for the Calc. And I was a mentor slash the curator for Jam 360. That's with the good people of Ix in Quebec, and Minashin, which is a native arts group based over here in Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Well, I'm not a stranger to wampum. Funny enough, this is one of the first commissions I've ever had. It's called Digital Wampum. It was for Miaja, the Rassemblement des Arts de la Culture. That was once again in my beautiful region. Well, actually, technically, happy to be over in Val d'Or. This is a commission that I also had. It's called All in the Same Boat. It's for the Anigo Eco, their headquarters over in at the airport in Val d'Or. And all of these things are all like, they're all done with an Illustrator or Inkscape. This is Illustrator. This also another commission that you can see if you're sick in Timiskaming. But more recently, this is where I've been working. Is I really have been having a lot of fun with AI tools, going really crazy with that. And on this one, I had the chance last June to work with Nathalie Chimino. She's a museograph from Mons in Belgium. And together we worked together and we created an entirely AI generated Fab Lab. So the places where there's the 3D printers and all that stuff. So we created one that essentially doesn't exist. So everything is created by these here are created by Stagan, the logo in itself. The motto was also made by Shopify, which is just a banal tool for for people who just want to market themselves or market their things. The team itself are all completely made up. They are generated by face generators, like they use in deepfakes. The names are actually name generators that were created by using this. There's a certain name generator that you can actually create Canadian names, and those, according to that generator, are Canadian names. And funny enough, Tiohtià is a name of an Algonquin chief, and I'm Algonquin. So there's certain things lining up. More that I was working with this, the more it turned into like this weird kind of I don't know, it was like a weird kind of a dreamscape almost. Like we're getting into the subconscious of all this data that's gathered. And more recently, I was at the Vernissage just 2 days ago with La Ville de Tiohtià and ses enfants. It's the story of this crazy town that's supposedly in our region here in Abitibi, and it was made during the residency, a mini residency for the Reconciliation Day, Truth and Reconciliation Day. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm in the Fab Lab. I've made some pretty wild stuff, and I know I can get things done pretty quickly. And I had the idea, like, okay, what if I took the website of the university itself that invited me over for the afternoon residency, and I just took that to create something, to generate some kind of text and see what happens. So that's what I did. I took exactly this page right here, all of it. I put it through a text generator, and what happened is all of a sudden, after about 3-4 times, it started. The first line was La Ville de Tiohtià and ses enfants. Then it started talking about its youth festival, and it started giving like the background of what's going on in this place. But at the same time, none of this is real. I actually had to Google if Tiohtià existed. I had to sit there like question my like reality essentially, and at the same time see how far can I push it? How far is the machine gonna go? So that's what I did, and what we did was, for a while out, what I did, I started, okay, let's do some really basic image generators. In case this is a crayon, also known as DALL-E MIDI, and it started generating all these weird pictures that seem kind of almost truthful, but still something was off, right? Of course, I had to get the logo made. Again, another generator did that, and what I ended up, and also there's the whole background. And what I ended up doing is I put it all together for this show that's going on right now. I created essentially a tourism booth, like promo, slideshow, the whole PowerPoint, all that stuff. I just have some stuff coming in from the printers, you know, like those big flags on the side and for the booth and all that stuff. So that's coming in. It's going to be fun. But as you can see, a lot of stuff that it says doesn't make any sense. Like it has, you know, it doesn't have a border with Canada and neither with Ontario. You know, it's big. It's not a train station. It's not a forest. It's not a place to do the stuff at the sea. And it's really wild what came out of this thing. And here's a few of the pictures of les Tolédéens. That's the name of the people that live there. And so I continued working on that, and now it's going to be coming. It's going to be in Rouyn-Noranda at the call for the next month and a half. Then I started playing with those Stahlgans, those same machines that, you know, they create things. So I started thinking, what if could I create, you know, what is known as a native painting? So just a quick try. I was like, you know what? I'll take all the Nouvelle Mauriceaux, even the fake ones, whatever ones, put them in there, see what happens when I mix them all up. What's gonna happen? What's gonna come out of this? And sure enough, I found, I don't know, some like 400 or 500 pictures of it. Put it in the Stahlgan, which in this case is it's called Runway ML, sorry, which is it's a machine learning model that you can train yourself, and it's usually used for, once again, for faces, stuff like that, really kind of banal stuff. But then I started pushing it a little further. I started using you know, Eastern Woodlands, Haida, throw it all together, because we always get thrown in all together anyway. So let's see what happens when the machine takes it. So here's a few of the highlights of some of those. There's still not exhibited yet. It's just stuff that I'm working on. And here's what happens when you push it a little further, because what you can do is once you created your model, you can feed back on itself. You can loop another iteration. So as it goes, it keeps on. It tries to find what's in common and tries to make something. And in this case, this is actually I put in pictures of cars because I wanted the gloss from those, you know, those car shots always like really beautiful, really shiny, this beautiful light. So as I kept on working, all of a sudden, oh, here we go. Now we got something. So that's kind of where I'm at right now when it comes to the artificial development, artificial intelligence work. When it's just to pure graphic. Once again, it just comes out stuff that you kind of recognize, but you don't. Much like what I do when I make these kind of design fictions. And funny enough, like Nicolas was talking about cathedrals and stuff. This is what happens when you take those ones that I had before, but you throw in pictures of cathedral rosettes and what you call it, stained glass. So that's another series I'm working on right now, which is really fun. So I'm about 2 weeks away from going to Barcelona, where I'm going to be doing the same thing that I've done with the Fab Lab. Essentially, I'm going to be taking the text from the place called Home Session I'm going to be staying at for the month, and I'm taking a month and I'm going to be changing, seeing what happens when I use translators, because I understand Spanish, but I can't really speak it, and I kind of can get some Catalan. So I'm trying to see what happens when the machine doesn't get it either, when there's little hicks and stuff between that and between English and French, making these weird loops. And then visually, of course, I'm going to do what I did before, but see if I could push it again, depending on what language comes out. And for this WAMPUM one, I'm going to be using, again, the same kind of techniques, but in this case, I'm looking more on ethnography, like the language of ethnography, of, you know, framing things a certain way so that now they're historic, they're historical, they have importance. And so I'm wondering if can I create a fake importance, essentially is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create this fictional thing, but that kind of resembles something that we already know. So that's about all I can give you guys right now. But I'll put a little teaser. There's a little teaser of some stuff that's come out that kind of look like they're WAMPUM, but they're not. But they're kind of tricky. And stay tuned. That's about it. Okay, how do I stop this? Stop. No. Stop sharing. All right, here we go. Thank you, folks.
Jonathan, thank you very much. That is quite a trip into another universe.
Yep, it really is.
I had made up some questions for people for all of you, but also I feel like maybe you might have been, you've sort of answered them in the way that you talk about your work, which is great for our audience, not so great for me because I don't want you to necessarily be repeating yourself. But I think maybe one thing that I would like to know, Dominic, so you talk about creating these new fictions and these different worlds. And in the statement that you gave me to look at, you talked about post-history. And I was wondering, how do you think this relates, how do you see this relating to wampum belts in particular, to create something that is post-history in that way?
Well, it's kind of odd because like in like Anishinaabe, like from where we're at, it's not really part of our culture that much. It is, but it's more like it's with dealings with Southerners. Really, is what it is. Not between Algonquins, but it's actually between other tribes. And I find it really interesting, like creating. I don't know. I like creating this weird kind of place where we're kind of we're beyond like reconciliation and post-colonialism. We're in some other weird world, like, and that like we could almost create our own histories now and make it seem like they're very, very real. So I find something very interesting in there, where like it could be used for really sketchy political things, but it could be used also to like just widen just the way we see things, like on a live, like a human level. That's
Yeah,
really
like
love
an expanded version of reality.
Yeah, yeah.
The way you talk about it makes me think a little bit of what Nicolas was saying with sort of the ways that wampum is not only to remember, but also show the absence or the forgetting of. What do you think, Nicolas?
To show the forgetting, you say?
Yeah, I think you talked about it shifting and talking about rupture and erosion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the way I see it is that if wampum do like the old ones, you know, and now we're into making new ones in all kinds of ways, and you know, with different materials. But for me, the first instigation is encountering the old ones, and if I do believe that they hold that kind of metaphysical power of speaking again, being reactivated, that's what I find beautiful, is that we are disconnected from them because of what happened in history and how the culture let go of these things. But we don't start from nothing when we reconnect. When we encounter these objects, they plant something in us. It can sound esoteric, but I do believe that you encounter the old wampum and they still carry something. So they are some of the seeds of the reconnection, of the memory coming back, or at least a few hints of how to work to remake culture and other memories. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you spoke really lovely and lovingly about the material attraction and importance, the connection to territory in its expanded sense, not just the idea of land, but the way we think and the way we are, how wampum is connected that way. I was thinking, Lori, perhaps I'll invite you to maybe talk a little bit about what motivated you to program this exhibition of contemporary art based on this topic. What do you see of the significance of this sort of work and why it's important to show it in Tiohtià?
Thank you. And thank you both for talking about your work. It's been really lovely to hear those words, and it's every time we get together, we just all sort of generate a little bit more knowledge about what this exhibition is going to look like. And so I'm just really super excited by everything now. I want to start by saying that Daphne, I didn't program. Daphne programs exhibitions through a selections committee. So it was all sort of coming together and making the decision based on sort of a group decision. But in our call for submissions, both Dominic and Nicolas made proposals that made great sense, and in the work that they were doing themselves individually, but then the idea just sort of really fired up that we could bring these two people together and the work that their practices together. And so that was just really, because they're both working within the notion of wampum, but from quite different practices as well. In the first proposal that Dom put in, it was about blockchain and the creation of wampum as an ongoing process. And I see you laughing again because it's like, well, actually, what the heck is this? But anyway, let's go with it because it sounds really exciting and really interesting. And then at that time, Nicolas was also talking a lot about the films and film as a filmmaker and the work that would go in. And then just again, as I said, it's just been so exciting for this work to sort of just, and the idea of this exhibition to just like keep coming forward and coming along in different ways. And now we're going to be going into a new space, and there'll be more space. And so again, the work is going to be, we'll see how it changes within our new larger exhibition space. So and also, I will also speak to the fact that we're also very excited and interested in the fact that there will be two wampum shows happening at the same time in Tiohtià in the autumn. And so there'll be the work that's happening at the Musée Record Stewart as well. So we'll just be thinking about that sort of transference across the city of the wampum belt and what's happening in each place as well. The significance of the work, I think, in sort of finally getting to your question, Hannah, is that I just think that it just comes back to, the fact that the work that we exhibit at Daphne is always work that is by Indigenous artists. We bring artists together who've got solely in a solo show or in group shows, but that the work that people are doing is contemporary, and we always come back to the fact that we are a contemporary art center, and it's contemporary work no matter where the materials originate or what the materials are. Because the fact is that we are contemporary people and we are working in the context of what is happening now and bringing our own knowledge, and both of you have spoken really well about that today, about bringing your sort of interest and your knowledge forward. And so it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what the materials are, but it does matter what the materials are, but they're not always located in the past, but they're living and breathing and moving in really interesting ways. And I just, there's, again, just the bringing cultural and contemporary knowledge and practice to the art practice. And so coming and bringing it into the context of Daphne and the exhibition space. And I'm just so excited about this exhibition. So it's great. And I just really, really want to say that also just the connections back and forth across territory and back to the land and the building of relationships, and that just like keeps coming forward in this work, whether it's like looking to the forward or looking to the past or coming together here all together, and always going back to the land. And also thank you for talking about porcupine quills as well, because that's a bit of a thing that I've got going on at the moment too. So I will end there. So thank you very much.
No, Lori, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm probably most of you know, I'm on the board of Daphne. I'm one of the co-founders, and we are really excited about this exhibition. I think personally, I'm just very excited that wampum as a mnemonic object. I'm not sure if everybody here knows necessarily that. We kind of bypass the 101, the sort of basic explaining of things, because we just get right into what it is to us. But it really is this originally mnemonic object. It's like a memory tool for when it's woven into a belt, which is a woven length of these shell beads. And it's to remember the oral agreements between nation to nation. The individual beads in Haudenosaunee cultures, nations are used for condolence, single strands, again, as a memory. And like Nicolas so said in such a lovely way about healing. So it plays a very important role in our cultures. And I think it's important, particularly with where we are, that it starts to come forward more as it remains present in our contemporary day-to-day makings, ways of thinking, and ways of being in the world as a cultural tool that we refer back to, I think, again and again. So thank you, Nicolas, Lori, Dominic, for speaking with us today. We have time for some questions. If people would like to jump in and contribute a little bit. I think I do want to mention also, very excited about the larger wampum exhibition happening at the McCord Museum, and that this idea of a dialogue, it just sort of worked out that way. We didn't plan it that way, but it worked out that way, which I think is really, really lovely as well. That can happen in the city. Did anyone have anything they'd like to ask the artists or to add to the discussion? If everyone is good like that. Are there any last words some of our panelists would like to say, or
things pop up to my mind what you said about the beads, and then when they're woven, because yeah, it's I'm fascinated how the gestures of weaving them together is always like charges everything with meaning. I find, like, I the more I look at wampum, the more I study the principles of making wampums, the more there's almost nothing that is just technical. Like, like whether you let the hide strips like hang or cut them at the end means something. The fact that the beads are all even, yes, there's technical practicality, but we could make them with rows that have different size. But the fact that there's no hierarchy among all the beads is connected to the thinking in the culture. Just like in the 2-row wampum, the 2 rows are equal, and that's not just design. This, and that's why too I found in my video experiment so far that things came more together when I started scrolling the image of the old belt, because just a still image, it was just lighting up this kind of disco ball, which I liked. But when I scroll them, we don't see in the pictures I showed, but all these traces, those light dots and everything, it becomes a constellations that flickers nonstop in the room, because they flicker by the alternation of purple and white in the old belt that I scroll. And it reminds us of this basic duality between 2 colors and 2 material that are used to say so many things. And someone was telling me that whelk and quahog apparently have a prey-predator relationship in the ocean.
Oh, really?
Whelk is really a predator that's
new information to me. That's interesting.
And that adds to my thinking of the opposing force.
The duality continues.
Yeah, just like the basic gesture of horizontal and vertical as a strong force of balance. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going, but I wanted to release those thoughts.
It will go somewhere. It will go somewhere. Yeah, I kind of react to what you say about the 2-row belt. I think most people here have heard of the 2-row, which is the 2 purple rows that are run parallel with on the white background. The idea of the colonial vessel and the indigenous vessel that go along parallel, not interfering in the lives of each other. And you say the 2 rows are equal, which is true, but I'd go further and I'd say the 5 rows are equal, because you count the white. It's the white actually in that belt, in that design. The white is not a background. The white is just as much a row as much as the purple rows are, because if the white was not there, then those 2 purple rows would collapse and fall on each other. So it's the white that gives the structure, and it's the white that's repeated as being peace, power, and righteousness, which, you know, understood as being friendship or respect, that keeps that relationship intact between the 2 purple rows. So there's a lot to be learned from Wampum belts, really. And I find every time there's a discussion, there's a little bit more information and knowledge that I gain, which I love. So I think it's always worthwhile to have more conversations on these topics. Keep it coming. Good. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, that might be a good note to leave this discussion on. Do we think? Yes. Okay. Well, I'd like to say, Nyango, a big thank you to everyone who joined us today. It's a beautiful day outside. Very happy to have a great attendance like this, and that you came to listen and be a part of the conversation. I think that we look forward to this exhibition happening later on at Daphne. Like Lori said, Daphne is in the midst, and very soon will be opening up its new doors. Keep your eyes out for the announcements of that happening. And with this Onkwehonwené research chair, I hope to have more sorts of activities, programming ongoing as well. It's going to sort of build up as we move forward. So thank you for coming in, and have a good rest of the day. Yeah, merci.
Good. Thanks.